Welcome to the Hollywood Raw podcast. My name is Adam Glyn. Over there is Dax Holt. I am very cold. Dax is very hot. It is freezing in the East Coast right now.
I literally just turned on the air conditioning. You didn't see me do it, but I was like, I got into the office this morning. Oh God, it's so hot in here.
Seriously, what's the temperature there for you right now?
It's like in the 70s. It's windy again, though. The wind's kicked up in California again, and normally the winds can bring in hot air from the desert, so it'll warm up a little bit. But it's crazy windy, so we're all just like crossing our fingers. Please, God, don't let any fires break out. We can't deal with any more fires in California.
Yeah, I know. The new thing is for celebrities to say, I have survivor's guilt. That's the hot thing right now.
That's a thing, though. That is a legit thing. Imagine your entire neighborhood burns down, and there's one house standing, and it is yours. And you drive down the street past all the rubble to your house. There is a certain level of like, I feel bad. I feel bad that my stuff is still here and everyone else is suffering. It's a true thing.
It is a true thing. I'm seeing a lot of videos of that. I saw Nina Dobrev do a video. I think the first person who kind of brought that up to my attention might have been Jennifer Garner. If
she said that, yeah.
And I was like, and there was again, I'm all about perspectives. It was an interesting take. I was like, wow, I never thought about that. So. But I just hope that everyone doesn't jump on that. Like, oh, I have survivors. Now I got to feel bad for you. It's like, come on, like
I don't know.
Too many people. I can't feel bad for everyone, guys. Let's kind of narrow it down who I should feel bad for. But ultimately, the thing was terrible. On today's show, we talked to a guy who's been very nice to me. I don't know where you guys stand politically. I'll tell you where I stand politically. Straight. I don't really have a political side. I don't.
Well, Adam.
Okay, I'm an anarchist, and I'm all about anarchy and chaos, but at least in the entertainment news world. But I don't know. I know him as a person.
Listen, let's just preface this by saying this is going to be the most non-political interview Don Lemon has ever had in his entire life, because we are not political people. So buckle up. Don't worry. This is not going to be a political podcast. We stick far away from that because it's too chaotic these days, but we're more interested. There's been a lot of big stories about Wendy Williams going on, and Wendy Williams and her life fascinates us to no end. She's done a couple interviews, and one of those interviews was with Don Lemon. And so we want to talk to someone that has spoken to her. What he believes, is she of sound mind? Should she be in this conservatorship or this guardianship, whatever the heck she's in? Is it fair? Does he feel like she should be let out? I feel like there's a lot of questions that we want answered regarding Wendy Williams, and he knows her really well. They've been friends for many years. So that is really going to be our topic for Don Lemon, and along with other just fun stuff about his life, I think.
Yeah, Don. I saw that Don, and I watched this interview that Don did with Wendy Williams. I was like, man, like, especially for everyone wanted to interview Wendy Williams. Don, who's got his own platform since he's left CNN and left X, he developed his own platform that's doing really well. So it's pretty cool for him to kind of get that sort of interview with Wendy Williams, and he's just an interesting guy. I'm always curious to talk to guys like him who've sort of met everyone, have been around some of the biggest news stories in the world for a long time. And I mean, his expertise is real news. Our expertise is real news in a fake world. So I'm excited to talk to Don. Before we talk to Don, Dax, I know, did you want to talk about Justin Bieber? I thought you got a little nervous because he unfollowed Hailey Bieber for a second on social media. Then Justin Bieber has to put out saying, I'm sorry. Somehow I unfollowed my wife on social media.
Sure, Justin. Sure.
That was weird. But that's weird how someone had gotten
accidentally unfollow, whatever. Maybe he just literally clicked the button. But can you imagine that living in a world where every single thing you do is so scrutinized by people like us? In reality, like, you make one mistake, you like one photo, and the world knows, and it becomes a news story. Like, that is weird.
It is definitely weird. And especially, like, I don't know how people see the following and unfollowing of people. I think that's a weird, and I understand it is a news story, depending on the situation, but like in a situation with the Bieber thing, oh my God, he just unfollowed Hailey Bieber.
How do you know? You have to be literally checking back and forth to see this stuff. Like,
Well,
who has time to check on the followings of others?
so it's funny. There was this kid. I don't even know this kid's name. He was this Irish sort of trying to be social media star who I met through a friend. And this kid had like millions of followers, and he knew one of the guys from One Direction somehow, or if he knew him, if he just met him one time, and he might have posted about him on his Instagram. And this kid, I met him once. I started to follow him on Instagram because we met, we had lunch, and we just followed each other. But then I realized like this kid sucked. Like it just wasn't a good. He sucked to follow. I didn't have a relationship with him, so I unfollowed him. The
He
next
knew.
day, he hit me up and said, "Hey man, why'd you unfollow me?" I was
How
like,
the hell did he know?
"I have no idea. I think there's like an app that could show you who follows you and who unfollows you if you
Oh
kind of
my
check."
God.
And I was like, "Hey man, I don't really handle my social media.
Oops.
Someone else does."
Justin Bieber accidentally unfollowed you for me. I gotta
Yeah,
go.
I fat fingers. Somehow I tapped it. I don't know what
If you
happened, but
care that much about your following, that's weird. Like to
it
know,
is
and then to
weird.
call someone out about it too is also a little fucking weird.
It was one of the most uncomfortable conversations I had. I was like, "Hey man, I'm not really on social media. Someone handles it for me for work, and I had to make up something even though it's me." But
The thing is, like, I've been asking you to unfollow me for years and you don't, and I don't know why. That's my bigger beef.
well, Dax, I will follow you through the alleys of Home Depot. I will follow you through bushes. I will follow you when you're driving your Tesla, and I'm a Honda Accord behind you. That's just what I do.
Stop following me, Adam.
All right.
All
Well,
right,
one
let's
thing you
read it.
should follow is our private Facebook group called Off the Record. It's a fun community. You guys can talk to us. We're going to do an Ask Us Anything episode soon. So get those questions ready that you guys want to talk to us.
Yeah,
for Ask Us
sorry, I
Anything
was
episode.
like a day late on posting those photos of Jessica Simpson's house, the interior shots. I told everyone, I was like, I'll have it up by Friday. And then I don't know what happened. I forgot. I got called out in the private Facebook group. So I apologize. I was late. If you want to be a part of it, go to hollywoodraw.com. There's a link to our private Facebook group. All right. Don's probably like, what the fuck are these guys talking about? Shut up, guys. Like, can I come on and just talk already?
All right.
No,
Before we bring
Don,
on,
we
no,
have to
not
read a
now.
review first.
Yeah. Wait your turn, Donald. Dax, do you have a review ready for us?
Of course. All right. This one comes from Don Lemon. No, I'm just kidding. This one comes from Mima Seabreeze. By far the best podcast, 5 stars. Always a great pod to make me smile. And I really need you guys. Thanks for being so real and transparent. Thanks for sharing the stuff I'm craving during these tumultuous times. Dax, your interactions on our private Facebook page, you are definitely a man of the people. See, I may be late, but I do put up the posts and the links that I say. Adam, your quick wit is a gift, and the way you make Dax laugh cracks me up. Thanks, guys. That was a good review. That was like someone
was
who
a very
truly
nice
knows
review.
us.
Yeah,
know
I
us.
appreciate that. Thank you for the review, and guys, keep them coming. It's the best thing to do to support this podcast. On to today's guest. Our guest is a huge broadcaster, one of the biggest broadcasters out in the world, who has worked on some major outlets, has now developed his own personal brand with his own YouTube show and Instagram Lives and TikTok. He's doing it all, and he's working hard, but he's working hard because he's good at it. He's got a gift. Don Lemon, thank you for coming on the Hollywood Raw podcast. Listen, bud, you were one of the few people to have Wendy Williams and interview her on your show. First off, that was a big interview that you had with her. You're one of the few people who got to talk to her. I'm assuming you guys had a relationship beforehand, right?
Yeah, we did. I knew her. I was on her show a bunch. I even filled in for her. Remember the whole thing with the Statue of Liberty for Halloween?
Mhm.
She passed out. I think during that time, they asked me to fill in for her, and I did. But I got to know her on the show. I think it was actually her husband, her then husband Kevin, who asked me to fill in for her when she got sick. But during the pandemic, we became friendly. We weren't best friends. She was in the city. She called and said, she was lonely. Her mom had died. She hadn't told the world yet. They hadn't announced it. And she said, I'm lonely. I'm in this apartment in New York by myself. And I have a house in Long Island. I said, come on out. And she came out for a couple of days in 2020, 2021. And then she came back the next year. But yeah, so I knew her.
That's great. So you had this conversation with her. I'm assuming you've had conversations with her before you did the interview with her, and you talked about her conservatorship. What were the big takeaways for people who didn't listen to that interview that you would think that are important things for people to know about conservatorship? Because people have a lot of curiosity about it. I don't think they understand a lot about it. But
Yeah.
what are your takeaways from it?
Okay, so look, a couple of things, Adam. I didn't talk to her before. I hadn't spoken to Wendy in a long time. She just kind of disappeared. Like she would call me, out of the blue sometimes, like in the middle of the night or just whenever. And I'd be like, oh, hey, Wendy, what are you doing? Whatever. And then that stopped. And then I tried to call her number for a long time, got nowhere. And then somehow, I can't remember how, that someone connected me with her niece, who is an on-air personality in Florida. And then I got back in touch with the family, but that was the first time that I had spoken to Wendy in years. And so I hadn't spoken to her, and her niece actually connected us. So Wendy can call out, but she can't call in. No, you can't call into her. So, that part, I hadn't spoken to her. That was the first time I'd heard her voice, like in my ear on the phone, in years. So what do I think about conservatorship? Well, I don't know if you would call this one conservatorship or guardianship, like in different states and different municipalities, they're kind of different. I think that there should be more transparency around them, not necessarily people's, medical records and such. But I think if there's not more transparency, it's easier to kind of hold people hostage. And I'm not saying Wendy's being held hostage. I don't know enough about it. I don't speak to her enough. I don't know the specifics of this guardianship. I'm not looking at the legal documents. So I can't speak to that. But I do think there should be more transparency around the process.
When you were talking to her, how did you feel like her mental state was? Because I've heard conversations where, it seems incoherent. And then I heard her the other day on the Breakfast Club, and I was like, she sounds totally normal. So how did your conversation with Wendy go?
So my conversation with Wendy was a bit rushed because she was supposed to call me, full transparency, she's supposed to call me at 7:30 in the morning. I got a call from her family member the night before saying, I missed a call. And she said, Don, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, uh-oh, what happened? I thought like something had happened to Wendy, right? Because she rarely just, text me on purpose, like, hey, out of the blue saying, call me. And then she said, Wendy wants to talk to you, and we can do it at 7:30 in the morning. And I said, okay, great. 7:30 came, no Wendy. 7:45, no Wendy. 8 o'clock, no Wendy. 8:30, no Wendy. 8:40, she's on the phone with me, not Wendy, but the family member, panicking, like, oh my gosh, she must have taken her phone. Now I won't be able to get in touch with her. She's like crying, she's in tears. And then she goes, oh my gosh, hold on, that's her. And I said, okay. She said, I'll call you right back. And so I, jumped in front of my camera, and we did the thing. And it was supposed to be a longer, like an hour phone call or so that I was going to have with Wendy, or for as long as she could stay on the phone. But it just turned into like a 15, 20-minute thing because her niece had to get back on the air, right? She at 9 o'clock, she does a live show, right? And so, it was 8:57, and I'm like wrapping it up with her so that this young lady could get on the air. So she was rushed. Because I think people warm up. As you guys know, you're in this business. People warm up as the interview goes on. And I think if she had warmed up, I could have gotten more out of her, and I could be a better judge of how she sounds. I'm not a mental health professional, Dax or Adam. I'm not that. Did she sound lucid to me? Yes. Did she sound like the old Wendy to me? No, I'm going to be honest. She didn't. Like the Wendy you see on the show? No, she did not. Did she sound like the Wendy who visited my house during COVID? No, but again, she was rushed. I'm not a mental health professional, so I can't say, whether she should be in this guardianship or not, or whether she is of sound mind and body. I can't. I haven't even laid eyes on the woman.
So it seemed like she did this day. She got interviewed by you. She got interviewed by Breakfast Club. She did maybe one other interview.
Jason, I think she did Jason on Hollywood Unlocked.
Hollywood Unlocked. Yeah, Jason Lee with Hollywood Unlocked. So she did interviews with people she trusted and she has a relationship with. What do you think she was trying to get out of doing all these interviews for that day?
Well, I think she wants people to know about her situation. I think Wendy wants to be freed. That's what I think. I think she's very transparent in what she says. She says she feels like she's in prison. That she has to, in order even to get on the elevator, she has to get a key. Someone has to let her out. If she wants to go to as she said, Sephora. I think I could, on the 2 interviews, I could mix up which one's mine, which one is the Breakfast Club. She said if she wants to go to Sephora, I think it's mine, where she has to get permission from the Guardian, and the Guardian calls ahead, and she can spend this much money or that. And then I said, you said that you're in prison, but yet you can go to your son's graduation. How is that? And I would imagine that she needs some sort of permission to be able to do that. But, it's not like she's there all the time and that she has to stay in the facility the entire time. And again, I don't know what the parameters are, but, it seems to me that she does have some freedom, some autonomy, not a lot, but some autonomy.
Here's my take on like the guardianship, conservatorship. We've watched Wendy Williams, we watched Britney Spears, Amanda Bynes. I feel like there needs to be some kind of in-between ground. You've got Wendy Williams here saying,
100%.
I'm locked up. Say that again?
I said 100%. Yeah.
There's Wendy who's saying, I'm locked up and I can't do anything. Then you had Britney who said, set me free. And now we've seen her get set free. And I feel like it's almost too free that I'm worried for her. I'm worried for her safety. I'm worried for her getting broke. And so I think there needs to be a middle ground where someone is watching over you, making sure you don't hurt yourself, making sure you don't make yourself go broke, but giving you a certain level of freedom where you can make phone calls out and take phone calls, because that just seems a little bit too much.
I agree. And I have said as much publicly that I think there should be a compromise. I think the parameters can be loosened. I think you should always be near loved ones, unless those loved ones are a bad influence or they're the ones that are actually, somehow encouraging your not your best intentions or your best instincts. You know what I'm saying? Or your best behavior. So I do think that there should be some sort of compromise. I agree with you, Dax, 100%. But here's the thing, and I'm going to say, okay, and a lot of people get upset with this. I know Wendy. I want what's best for Wendy. Okay. So I think that Wendy at this point should have some autonomy. She should be around the people she loves. She's worked very hard over the years for whatever financial resources she has. Okay. And people who are of sound mind and body can spin themselves broke without a conservatorship or without a guardianship. And the attorneys that I've spoken to say, just because someone is, you may think that they don't have the mental capacity, they should have the ability to be able to spend whatever money that they want to. You just can't take someone's rights away. Okay. Now that's some of the attorneys that I've spoken to have said that. Others say, and her attorney, I don't know if you saw that her attorney released a statement, or I'm not sure if she did an interview, but I think TMZ had it. And the attorney said, she has a degenerative disease that gets worse over time. It's not going to get better, that she cannot make sound financial or personal decisions for herself. And so if that is indeed true, then the progress that we're seeing, you have to wonder if the progress that we're seeing, if that is because they have her in this guardianship and that she's at this facility and that she is getting treatment. And if she were not there, we may see otherwise, because we've seen before she was in, pardon me, I hit the mic. We've seen before she was in the guardianship, we saw her out and about in New York. We saw her falling asleep in places. We saw Wendy unattended, not in her best light. We saw the documentary that disturbed everyone. And now, after she's been in this guardianship, let's just be honest, everyone's saying, well, she sounds great. She sounds whatever. Is that because of this? Those are the questions that I have. And again, I don't know. You don't know. Most people who are, hypothesizing about this, they don't know. By having a conversation with Wendy for 5, 10, 20, 30 minutes, an hour on the phone, you don't know. And her attorney said as much. Sometimes she has good days and sometimes she has bad days. So that's why I say more transparency around this. And at some point you have to decide if Wendy wants to go and spend all of her money, and if she's of sound mind and body, then that is her right to be able to do so.
Has anybody heard from her ex-husband? I mean, Don, have you? Because you did used to have a relationship with him. Have you heard from him anytime lately in the past year or two, at least?
I've never had a relationship with Kevin except for him calling me on the phone, I believe, and asking me to fill in for her. And, you know, seeing them, I think I saw them at SNL once, and I saw Kevin, Wendy would have a book. She would come on my show on CNN to promote it, him in the green room, but I wouldn't, you know, I did not, like, I don't even think I have Kevin's phone number. So I don't, and I haven't heard from him.
I was always scared of that guy, man. That guy was intimidating. I used to see him at Caroline's on Broadway. When she's her comedy show, he was so scary. I didn't know who the celebrity was, if it was him or her, because he had so much of an entourage wherever they came. I was like, he was an intimidating guy for me. But I'm glad he, at least, you know, you had somewhat of a phone call relationship, at least.
Have you ever heard? Did you hear the story about how she served him the divorce papers?
No, what was that?
I told it in my thing. I think that, I don't know if they could get, Wendy told me one of the first times she came to my house, she told me her words, that they were worried that he was going to avoid being served, you know, from the process server. And so, you know, and I think he was doing a very good job of it. And she knows that he likes gifts. He likes designer things. He likes, you know, the stuff that used to show up at the Wendy show, and people are like, hey, you know, Wendy, wear this, or, you know, blah, 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 designer thing. And so they put the divorce papers in a Balenciaga box.
Oh my God.
And
that is brilliant.
According to Wendy. And then when he drove into their house, into the driveway of the house in New Jersey, they said the process server was at the end of the driveway and said, a delivery for Kevin. And he's like, oh yeah. And then he signed for it and he goes, you have been served. Because
oh my God.
What a smart way to like serve someone though. Like if you are like, I know what they love and what they fall for is handbags or whatever it is, that's beautiful. That's hilarious.
Who's the one, Don, you're doing your show now on YouTube, which is crazy because I remember when you started doing this show too. I mean, I think you saw the future, like what's going on in TV and kind of going to the internet. And that's where, you know, developing your own brand. But it's so crazy how quick you sort of developed your own brand, which you already had, but like how many subscribers you've gotten so quickly. I mean, you have a built-in fan base, people that tune in to watch your IG lives and your YouTube show every week. Who is the one person that you sat down with that you found to be the most interesting person ever?
You mean just over my entire
just
time?
In general, in your whole career,
general?
CNN, everything. Who's like, I always ask Gail King that, like, who's the one person that you think was just, that people would know that you're like, man, this person's just so fascinating and interesting. And I'll say for me, I'll give you before you even say your answer, my person is, I always found myself to be more interested in people like yourself. And before knowing you, I had a good relationship with Matt Lauer. And I found Matt Lauer to be so fascinating to me because he's a guy who sat down with so many unique people that I found Matt very interesting. But for you, who's a person that you have met and interviewed that you're like, man, this person is just such an interesting person?
Well, oh God, it's tough because I've interviewed so many people, from, you know, presidents, honestly, to convicts, right? To prisoners. I've interviewed every single type of person. I got to tell you, I think one of the most fascinating, honest, real people that I've interviewed recently, who I love, is Michael Fanone, the insurrection officer. I think he's fascinating. I think that I can't imagine what someone like him is dealing with now, that the people who, you know, could have ended his life have been paroled and let out. So I find him fascinating for what he's gone through, his arc. But I haven't interviewed yet, but I met recently at the convention, the Democratic convention in Chicago this past summer, was Dave Chappelle. I'll tell you who I would really love to sit down with Dave Chappelle and do an interview with him and talk about all of the things, all of the trans jokes, and not even so much the jokes, is that I think Dave is a funny guy, but I like his social commentary more than I like his comedy. He's brilliant, but I think that he weaves through both. Same thing with Jon Stewart. I like Jon Stewart's social commentary more than I like the comedy. But, you know, I've interviewed so many people, but I think I would have to say probably the most interesting people I interview are just the average, everyday Americans who find themselves in extraordinary positions. And there have been so many of those. The folks like, interviewing a president, okay, it is an honor, but it's actually not that fascinating many times. Even celebrities, okay, great, I get to interview this celebrity, that celebrity, but it's not that fascinating many times. I'm usually surprised and inspired by just everyday people. But I do want to interview Dave Chappelle. I hope I answered your question.
No, you did. Actually, it's funny. I'll connect you next time with Chappelle was just here, obviously doing SNL, but he was here for like a long time, and he was doing. I should have let you know he was doing some secret shows, and I should have give you the heads up when he was doing some.
I have his person, but I would love to. You look, Adam. You have the hookup, and so hook me up. You always have the hookups. I also like being interviewed by people, and especially people who I don't agree with, or who don't agree with me, or we have different philosophies on life, like the Nelk Boys, right? That was fascinating to me. And I think that people should go into the lion's den and do that. Look, I've interviewed Donald Trump. He's fascinating to interview. The man, when I interviewed him, he would bring his own polls and own studies and his own news clips to the interviews. So look at that, Lemon, look at that. And it's like, okay. So fascinating to interview him, but yeah. I'm sure I'll think of someone specifically, but not right now. I can't think of anyone specifically who I've already interviewed.
People love the morning show. As a guy who's worked in morning TV, how accurate is the morning show when it comes to how a show like that's produced, to the craziness, the madness around the morning show?
I thought you meant my morning show that's on 10 a.m. Eastern. Hot Topics. The Hot Topics show. By the way, the morning show that I do a morning show at 10 a.m. Eastern. It's called Hot Topics. You know why? Because of Wendy Williams, because I thought there was a void in out there in morning TV. I'm not in television, that people aren't talking about these topics like Wendy talked about them. So I started this morning show called Hot Topics, and it's a hit. Okay, so traditional linear television morning show. Look, it was 6 months. I don't even remember how long. It wasn't very long that I had a morning show. No, I would say it's not. Maybe on the networks it's that way.
Yeah.
But it wasn't for me. There was not as much drama as people even wrote about me or write about morning shows. It's not as much drama as on the Apple morning show. But I think network morning shows are a whole different beast, a whole different animal, because they're basically promotion tools now. Right. It used to be like, everyone had to, oh my God, I have to get the first 30 minutes of the Today Show. I can't miss it so I can get my news of the day. But the landscape has changed. You can get your news of the day now just by scrolling through social media, scrolling through, on your phone. And now it's just about, I have a book out, I have a movie coming out, whatever. And it's sort of become that, what diet can you take? So make my belly flat, that kind of thing. But I would imagine there is, at the height of the morning show thing, when Matt was in the game, maybe in the Bryant Gumbel days, that kind of thing, the Katie Couric days, that maybe it was that way. But I think sort of with the with the decline of linear television, I don't think it is that way, and I think it's going to get less of a morning show way.
What I loved about what Apple has done with the morning show is they've taken some like big storylines that we know have happened in real life with hosts of morning shows, and they've incorporated into the script, and seeing the like behind the scenes of like a cheating scandal, or someone lying about certain content or whatever. That's what I like that they've done about that, and they try to keep it pretty current. So when you see fires in California, boom, they have it on the morning show pretty quickly after. I don't know. I just think they've done a good job with that show, keeping it really relevant.
I haven't watched it. I think I watched the first season. I haven't watched it in a while. But I mean, think about it. Do you know any characters right now, on morning television that are relatable to the actual morning show?
It's true. It's...
What about?
I think that answers your question.
Dax doesn't know. George Stephanopoulos is out before the show's even done. He's out by 8:40 in the morning. The guy runs out. I'm like, George, the show is still going on. What are you doing? So yeah, it's. I guess during that time,
I mean, I feel like they could easily tap into that whole cheating scandal that happened at GMA, because that seems like they could cover that. But other than that, I don't know anymore. I don't know. It's just it's an interesting show to watch, and I think being in the news business or knowing what it's like, I think there's some parts that are like, ooh, yeah, that does go down in real life, and no one would know
cheating
about
scandal on the morning show? Who
The-
is Gail cheating on?
that. What is their names? Why have I totally blanked on their
Are
names?
you talking about TJ and Amy?
Yes.
Yes.
They weren't on the morning show. They were like GMA.
Well, they were the third hour. That's still morning.
They're on GMA
They're like 1 in the
correspondence.
afternoon. Like
That's
a whole
still
thing.
It's like
Okay.
Good Morning American 3. It's still there.
All right. No, I mean, no shade. I'm just saying. When I think of morning, I think of Robin and Gail and what's his name, Nate or whatever. Those guys are the morning.
Sure. You know what? I mean, while we're talking about mornings, I know you have a relationship with Matt Lauer. What are your thoughts on him? You know, is there any chance of him coming back to television or some sort of digital platform podcast or something?
Sure. I think that if he could come back to digital, he can set his own course. Look, I only got to know Matt after, the whole situation happened. And because we live in the same town and we have mutual friends. And whenever I see Matt out and about, or even with us, if we go out to dinner, my husband and I will go out to dinner with him and his fiance, and people love him. Women love him. They're like, Matt, oh my God, can I get a picture? I love you. I miss you on television. Blah 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 blah. Right. And so, I think the public loves him.
Mm-hmm.
The public misses him, but it's the people inside the business who are afraid of, maybe in this whole Trump era when, canceled is over. I don't know. Maybe there is a way that he'll come back, but I think it's more of the people who are inside of the business who are concerned about, what happened with Matt. I think the public, I'll put it this way. I think the general public would accept would accept Matt back. And I think people would watch him and I think the ratings would be great.
So why doesn't Matt Lauer start up a YouTube page then? Why fall for whatever is going on in the corporate TV world? Start up your own thing, do something independent and not rely on a corporation to give you a platform.
I think that you should talk to Adam and you guys, he should give you Matt's number and you should ask Matt.
Yeah.
Because I think only he can answer that question.
Yeah. I mean, Matt was always, I'm a Matt fan. I loved him on the show. I thought he was a great host and he was really good at what he did. So
let me say this about, there are certain people who are meant to do what they are doing. Do you know what I mean? Who are just really, really good at it. And it sounds to me like what you're saying, Adam, is that you appreciate his talent and he just felt like he should be there, right? There are certain people who are on television where you feel like, well, that's exactly what they should be doing.
Matt he was what you wanted to see in the morning, similar to Wendy Williams. The talent of being able to sit there and just talk into a camera by herself, not look. I mean, Matt had a co-host, but someone like Wendy Williams who didn't have a co-host, she would sit there and talk into the camera for her first 30 minutes of the show and just give her hot topics, similar to what you're doing now on your YouTube, which you're doing a great job as well, kissing her ass a little bit too. But I mean, it's not easy, but you guys make it very it's you go after the hot topic. You have a great perspective, a great angle, a great take, and it's a talent. It's a real talent. What you, Wendy, Matt would do. I mean, Matt would not really have a bias because he worked for a network television show, but you and Wendy, what you guys are doing for your hot takes they're great takes.
So I can hear literally the women listening to our podcast right now screaming, being like, why are they promoting Matt? Give me your guys' hot take on Matt Lauer in general. Like,
I'm not promoting anything. No, you guys asked me a question. I told you.
No. I want to know, like, you guys obviously know him personally. I do not. So like, give me your guys' opinion of like, was he fairly kicked out of Hollywood or not?
It was a culture. It was an era where people were just kind of getting canceled right and left, and I think it was an internal issue. And at the end of the day, I think people appreciate Matt. They enjoyed his work. They don't know what happened, And I think, as far as I just hope he would come back. As a fan, I would hope he come back. But at the end of the day, I just hope he's happy, and it sounds like he is happy. So.
Yeah. Look, I don't know anything about what happened. And I know nothing about that at all, especially with any sort of intelligence or any inside information to speak on it. You asked me about knowing him. I know him. He lives in my town. I don't know. And you asked me about his talent. Yes, he's a very talented person. But the other thing, women can feel the way that they feel, and I understand that. But that's their business. I know when I'm out with him, everybody loves Matt. And everybody flocks to Matt, and everyone wants a picture, and everyone says, I miss you, and we want to see you back on television. That's all I hear it every time, I'm with him.
Don, I got to ask you a weird question. Is Donald Trump good for Hollywood? And what I mean is,
yes.
Obviously, yes. Ratings wise, people are curious. When Joe Biden was in office, he talks to the cameras.
I don't know about ratings anymore. I think that's over, Adam. I think the fascination with Donald Trump in every single development, I think that's over. I think that's going to last in the beginning of now with all of the executive orders and that kind of thing. But I think that's going to fade because we've seen this movie before, and I just think people are exhausted. Is he good for Hollywood? Yeah, he's good for plot lines. He's good for writers. He's good for, in some ways, the jokes write themselves. It's easy on the comedy writers and it's easy on the comedians because, Donald Trump will do things that you're just like, it writes itself. Okay. So that way, but I don't think that he's going to be the ratings blockbuster that he was, especially for news programs. I just think people are exhausted.
Mm. Do you think Nielsen ratings are accurate or should still even be kind of considered?
I won't answer this. I won't say that they're accurate. I don't think they're not scientific. Let's put it that way. And obviously they figured out a way that they measure it. It's just like polls. We've seen it in the poll. Look at the political polling. I think it can be akin to political polling. It depends on, how Nielsen gathers their information. But do I think it's accurate? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't find it. You look at the numbers now, and you could say, 2.4 million. That's a huge number. Maybe 700,000 people are watching this show every morning. But are they actually watching the show? Are they actually tuned in, or is it in the background of a doctor's office just playing? Are people actually paying attention to that show?
I don't think that they measure it. It depends on the metrics. It's not going to be. I don't think they measure whether it's in the background of a doctor's office, unless that doctor's office has a Nielsen box and they are actually writing down the information, or somehow electronically they're doing it. I do think that in the medium that I'm in now, in this digital medium, it's much more accurate. I can see who's watching me every second. Mm-hmm. I see the numbers go up and the numbers go down. But you cannot be influenced by that. You have to be, you have to have integrity about what you're doing. So I think that is much more accurate. I was always surprised that, especially in cable, like, why doesn't everybody with a cable box, why aren't you measuring who's like every single person? I mean, who to send a bill to, mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. You know what they're watching when they do, when there was on demand on cable, you knew what they were watching, and you could send a signal to their house so that they could have access to this sports channel or this adult programming or whatever it is, this pay-per-view thing. So why couldn't they measure it that way? I was always flummoxed about that. So
we see that with the podcast. I'm sure you see that with your hot takes. You see what stories people are really commenting on and clicking on. For us, it was P. Diddy. People were fascinated with the P. Diddy story. So when we covered that, those videos went huge for us. Now, the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively situation. Once we make a video of that, what's going on in that whole saga, that whole storyline, people are clicking on that. So, and I'm sure for you, you see that. You see what people are chasing. Is that fun for you to kind of go after those stories that people, or you could see right there that what people are kind of curious and interested on?
Well, I don't know if it's fun for me. It provides me with, it gives me the opportunity to be able to exercise a part of the business and to engage in a part of the business that I wasn't able to engage in when I was in linear television or legacy television. But there's a danger to that. You have to remember as well, when you're talking about that, you're also talking about algorithms. because the people who are on these, especially social media sites and even on digital sites, a person is programming the algorithm. So it's not just like, and that algorithm is what probably skewed towards, or at least programmed to pick up on certain things. And I guess numbers overall, that's the whole goal. That's the whole success. So if people are interested in drama, it picks up on that. Or so it's a slippery slope, I believe. And you gotta monitor it. Or I do think that there should be some sort of, somebody watching it, some sort of moderation, even of the algorithm.
Don, I got my last question for you. Knowing what you know in the media landscape at this point, if a network came knocking, would you go, or you enjoy being your own boss, having your own freedom, not feeling like you have someone, looking over you? Would you go back to network TV or linear TV if they asked?
And the way that it was, no. But if I could set some ground rules about things, then and it depends on the deal. It would depend on who it was, what they were asking me to do. But I'm very happy doing this. When I started this, I told Adam, I spent all this money on this beautiful studio with lights and cameras and all of that, and it's great. It looks great, but that's not what the people on digital want. Yep. They want me right here in my living room. They want me with the fireplace behind me. They want me monitoring either the fires or the weather around the country, on the feeds that I get. They want me drinking coffee. Yesterday, on my live show, which got crazy engagement, I cooked breakfast and talked about the issues. And I said, look,
feels authentic. People like authentic.
I cooked breakfast. I said, I'm going to cook a Southern breakfast this morning because it's Dr. King's birthday. We're going to do a King breakfast and we're going to talk about the issues. We'll talk about the inauguration, but we're not going to over-index on it. We're not going to follow every single thing because I don't think that that's healthy, number one. And I don't think that's what you want. And I think that you can be informed without being inundated. So, hey, let's have breakfast together. What are you eating? What are you drinking? Where are you? And these are the issues we're going to talk about. And the engagement was incredible. Everyone's like, thank you, Don. Thank you for that. That is exactly what we needed. I don't know if I would have that autonomy if I went back to legacy media. And the joy that I get from that and being able to talk to people. My my stream last night in the evening is part of the highest tier. I have memberships. We call them the Lemon Legends. Those are the folks, just like we're on now, they get to come on just like this. And they're actually a part of the show. And they'll say, Don, what did you mean by this? Or Don, I disagree with you on this. Or Don, I love that you said this. Or, all kinds of things. Why aren't you talking about this? And they're a part of the show. I could not do that in legacy media. So I'm controlling my own destiny. But there's a part of me, I grew up in legacy media. That's where I grew up. So I always, I always have an affinity for it, but doesn't mean that's necessarily where I want to be right now.
100%. And for people who haven't checked out his YouTube page, go check it out, The Don Lemon Show. You're on there all the time, putting up great content, engaging your audience. And so, if anyone wants to check it out, head on over there.
Don't forget my socials. Don't forget my TikTok, my Instagram.
We'll lay it up for you. Tell us where people should find you.
Look, all you have to do is go look at Don Lemon. But also, if you can come on the show, just subscribe so that you get the notices and you'll know what we're talking about. And you can choose to engage or not. But it's the Don Lemon Show on YouTube. And then we're also on iHeart, Apple, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and wherever you get streaming. But some of the content that gets the most engagement is the stuff that I put on social media. And now people used to walk up to me and go, hey, CNN. Now they're like, hey, TikTok guy.
And that's a weird transition.
It's a weird transition, but it's a much different demographic. And guess what? It happens to me a lot. When it happens to me more and more and more often. They're like, TikTok guy. People would say, I get dressed to you in the morning. And I'm like, I'm not on CNN's morning show anymore. And they're like, no, on TikTok. Like,
oh, that's awesome.
Okay.
It's great.
Crazy.
It's awesome. Honestly, what you're doing is very inspiring and you're having fun. And I gotta be honest with you, Don, as a friend and as a fan, like when you follow you on TikTok, you see how hard you're working at it. And I think that's just the cool thing too, like how much you're enjoying it, how hard you work at it. And I've seen the growth since you started. I mean, just the YouTube channel to the TikTok alone. I mean, it's pretty wild, but I mean, you're a beast. You work really hard and it shows it. So because the success of it, Don.
Thank you. Can I say something real quick before we go? Let me say something real quick. I'm glad you said that, because if you're doing this, you have to be willing to work hard and also not abide by the same rules like in television. You have to be able to get out there. You have to be willing to be vulnerable. You have to be willing to embarrass yourself. You have to just be willing to try new things and see if they work or not. And what's interesting to me is that I get folks who are in traditional media and also, old school media and new media, and they'll say, I love that you're putting yourself out there and that you are, and that you have embraced this whole new media idea. And so I would say that to anyone, because a lot of folks who are doing what I did, they're going to have to do what I'm doing now. Mm-hmm. And so if you're going to do it, if you're used to, 80 producers and whatever, that ain't happening.
Get it out of your head.
Get it out of your head and get ready to pound the pavement.
Love it. Thank you, Don, so much for taking the time with us. Really, really appreciate it, buddy.
You rule, bud. Thank you so much, Don.
Thank you, guys.
Don Lemon, nice guy. And what he's doing, what he ended in this interview, he said, that a lot of people are reaching out to him, his colleagues, broadcasters, saying, hey, I respect what you're doing. And I think it's true. It's like he's able to be his own boss. He's able to monetize it. And he's also like having fun with it. But he's working his ass off. But again,
it's not easy. Like, that's the thing. Like,
it's not easy.
It was probably much easier to show up on set, have someone do your makeup, your hair, read off a teleprompter. Now you got to do all that shit yourself. And it's funny because he's talking to us and I'm like, yeah, I know. That's literally what, granted, TMZ was a different situation. Like, that was diving into the news. But then I had other gigs where it was easy and it was beautiful. You show up and you just look good and you get to talk, and then you go home and everyone else deals with all of the putting away the equipment and lighting and making you look good. And this is a different ball game altogether. We look like shit most of the time because we got no one.
It's also a giant investment for him. Like, he mentioned, like, he got a studio, he hired a team.
But you don't need any of that stuff. That's what you realize quickly is you're used to a studio, so you feel like, oh, I need a studio. I did this for that other YouTube channel that I had, Hollywood Pipeline. I built a full studio in my garage, and people want just normal, everyday situations is what you start to realize.
So make sure you check out the Don Lemon Show on YouTube, on TikTok, Instagram. He's fun. He's on it all. But I mean, again, as far as politically, I couldn't tell you. I don't have that. My black belt is in entertainment news. That's my expertise. If you ask me anything that's going on in the world, I don't have a take because I'm just not educated enough to do it. So I watch people like Don. I watch all different people's perspectives on that. But I have to say, as a person, Don has been always very nice to me, and I just appreciate the person. All right. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, check out us out on TikTok, Instagram, our private Facebook group called Off the Record. Fun community. We talk to you. You talk to us. We're probably going to do an Ask Us Anything episode soon because we usually do it once a quarter where you guys can ask us questions. We sort of answer everything. So we try to do that once a quarter. Follow me at Adam Glyn. Follow Dax Holt at Dax Holt, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
What's up, guys? If you like that video, there's plenty more where that came from.
Make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell so we can just feed you all the goodness daily.
Hurry up. Come on, let's go.